No matter how hard you try, your portraits are not coming out right. It's either the proportions are off, the shading is trash, or it's just all of it. You look at these talented portrait artists online and you try to compare your work to theirs, and you're just trying to figure out, how is my stuff not coming out the way theirs is coming out? You just want your drawings to be just as good as theirs. Trust me when I tell you, I was in the same exact position. I was in your shoes years ago. Once I learned these life-changing lessons as an artist, my portraits, my technical skills just shot up. I went from drawing terrible like this to drawing these amazing portraits like this. Before we get into these lessons, the first step you have to take is to believe in yourself. You have to see yourself as a professional artist. There's no difference between you and Michelangelo or you and Kadir Nelson. There's a point in every artist's life where they had to practice and they had to learn how to draw. They had to implement certain techniques in order to find what works best for them. We're all human, we're all the same, we all start somewhere. Every morning you wake up, tell yourself that you are an amazing artist. You are a professional artist. Words of affirmation feed your subconscious, and the more you feed it, the more you start to change subconsciously as an artist and as a human being. So you can do it. That's like the first step. You had to believe in yourself. So you should be your #1 fan. It took me years to realize this, especially as a self-taught artist, and I wish someone would have told me sooner. My art teachers didn't even tell me this. But everything are shapes. I mean, every single thing. You're looking at me right now, you're looking at your screen, you're looking, whatever room you're in, whatever you look at, they're just shapes. I know it can look overwhelming to draw. Like if someone wants to draw a portrait, they try to separate it. Oh, it's the nose, it's the eye. Like, how do I render a realistic eye? But in reality, it's all just shapes. A great way for you to identify shapes, if you're using a reference image, turn it upside down. You can actually see the shapes and you won't see like the portrait as a whole. You'll see it in different parts. You have to train your eyes in order to see different shapes. It takes a minute at first, I will admit. There's times where I try to break things down into shapes, but I cannot separate the shapes from the overall structure of whatever I'm looking at. If you're a painter, I think you should be great at this, because painters, we know that you have to break down the painting in shapes before you can just like fully go in and create like a full rendered portrait. There's steps, so don't think the first initial lines or the first initial marks you're gonna make on your sheet of paper is gonna be like the final portrait or the final drawing. The best thing I could have ever done on my drawing journey is freehand. Freehanding has helped me become a better artist all around, whether I'm painting, drawing, or even sculpting. Freehanding allows you to have that mind-hand connection when you're trying to recreate something on a flat surface. Freehand as much as possible. I know you're probably trash at it, I was trash at it, or you're probably, decent at it, and you're gonna get better. The more you freehand, the better you get. That's just facts. I don't hear many artists talking about this. Use grid art if you're not perfect at freehanding. Use both, but focus on grid art as well. It really helps you to measure without using the sighting technique. The sighting technique, if you don't know, is when you take, The sighting technique is when you take your pencil and you use it to measure whatever you're looking at in order to measure your drawing on the paper. It's something that will help you along your journey, but the grid art does help you measure these shapes or measure your drawing without actually using this sighting technique. I don't care what anyone says, draw from life. It's not the best to always use a reference image like on your tablet or just like a photo and then replicate that image on a sheet of paper. I did that pretty much my whole drawing journey, but then I started to draw from life more, and then I saw like my technical skills skyrocket. I remember my first college class, we did figure drawings, live figure drawings with the models in the same room. And I wasn't really the best at drawing from life. I didn't have that much practice. I used a reference image every time I drew something, especially portraits. So once we started using actual live models to draw in class, I realized that I need to work on this a lot more. And the more we did it, the better I got. I started to understand shadow and how light falls on certain objects better and how to replicate those objects on the sheet of paper. And the biggest thing I learned from those live model drawing sessions is line weight. Line weight is super important, and it can really advance your portraits if you understand how to use it. Line weight is essentially the thickness or boldness of a line when you apply it to your drawing. This is kind of self-explanatory, but study anatomy, please. If your goal is to get better at portrait drawing, it makes sense to study anatomy, right? Anyone can see a person and try their best to draw it. What separates a good portrait artist to an amazing portrait artist is their understanding of anatomy. You see the portrait head on. You see the nose, the skin, different parts of the anatomy, but you don't see what's underneath. You don't see the skull structure. You don't see the muscle groups. And that plays a big role in order to create realistic portraits. To me, it just doesn't make sense if you don't study portraits. If you want to be a gardener, why not study how to garden? Like, you learn how to do it instead of just diving right into it and not knowing the ins and outs in order for you to advance in your craft. Same with any other profession, you have to go and practice and learn from others, or just learn what you're doing in order to become amazing at it. Whatever technique you use in order to create shadows, to create highlights, to create your portrait, make sure you have clean lines. Clean lines are the most underrated thing. I have people emailing me, messaging me all the time, asking me to critique their work. And I see within a lot of beginners, their lines are not clean at all. Either they blend with like a blending stump and they don't use the tool properly, and it's all, it's not clean. For example, I use the cross-hatching technique and the hatching technique to create my portraits. Every time I put down a line on the sheet of paper, I make sure that it is contributing to the portrait, as a whole. I don't just put a line down just to put it down. It has to make sense to me. Just like painters. If you know anything about painters, every brushstroke they put on their canvas has to make sense and has to contribute to the painting as a whole. There's nothing like clean work. Learn to detach yourself from your art. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we get too attached to a drawing where we feel like we need to finish it, or we need to sit through the pain and the torture of it being terrible in order just to finish it. The drawing you're working on right now, you might think is terrible, but then you use that to determine your abilities and your skills. One portrait doesn't make up who you are as an artist. I've been attached to my drawings throughout my drawing journey many times, and that caused a lot of burnout. Burnout sucks. And I wouldn't draw for months because the portrait I was making, which is so bad to me, I couldn't continue it. What I learned is, if you're sketching a portrait and it's not how you want it to come out, then put it aside, start a new drawing. I wouldn't recommend throwing away your drawings. I did that too many times, and I wish I would have kept some so I could see my progress. So I just put it aside, put it in a folder, put it in storage, and then work on something new. Now, I don't want you to work on something new every time you feel like you mess up. Sometimes you do have to complete that portrait just to get through it, and you can learn from your mistakes. Learning detachment gives you a third-person perspective in order for you to critique your own art. You want to be able to distinguish what you did wrong and what you did good, and apply that to the next drawing. I know you hear it all the time, but practice makes perfect. It really, really does. Every artist you look up to, every professional artists out there making millions of dollars had to start somewhere. All of them put in hours and hours each day to perfect their skills. Now, I'm not saying you have to draw every single day for hours, but you want to draw as much as possible. To tell you the truth, you either want to be great at what you do or you don't want to be great at what you do. Every time I would come home from school, I would just start drawing. Me personally, I wasn't really like a video game person or just someone who, goes out all the time, hangs out with friends. I was more so of an introvert. Every time I came home from school, I would just start drawing. And I was a movie person. I love watching TV shows, and you could do both at the same time. You don't really have to sacrifice watching TV or listening to music or listening to podcasts if you're that type of person in order to, draw. You can do both at the same time. If you want to play video games while you draw, I don't think that will work. But you need to make time to work on your technical skills and improve those skills. A great tip is to carry a sketchbook with you wherever you go. If you're traveling, if you're going to school, no matter where you go, carry a sketchbook and draw from life as much as possible. It's very simple. Once you get to the level that you want to get to, you realize that you could do anything you want. You can progress in any kind of way you want. You just have to put in the time. Time is where it's at. And no one becomes an amazing artist overnight. No one. So you either want to make time for it and put in the work, or you don't want to make time for it and put in the work. I wasn't always as good at drawing portraits or just drawing in general. I had to learn everything on my own. I spent 8+ years learning how to draw with a pen. No mentors, no teachers, and it's something I really wish I had, but I am grateful that I'm able to get to this point of my artist journey to teach you all how to draw with a pen. If you want to get better at drawing with a pen, like me, then check out my ballpoint pen drawing book below. It will really help you progress as an artist really fast, and it won't take you 8+ years to be able to draw like I draw. In the book, it has my techniques, everything you need to know on how to draw with a pen, and I just want you guys to be a better artist. If you have any content ideas you would like for me to go over, please put it in the comments below, and I really appreciate you for watching. Get to drawing.